Newfoundland, Canada, May 20th, 1932. 34-year-old aviator Amelia Earhart takes off for a daring attempt to become the first woman to fly solo over the Atlantic Ocean.
And now, what they just found inside Amelia Earhart's plane is rewriting everything. For decades, experts were obsessed with finding the outside of the plane. They hunted for its frame, its fuselage, a wing, anything. But nobody was seriously considering what might still be inside it. That changed once Romeo's team returned to the site for a closer look in February 2025. Equipped with an upgraded underwater drone featuring high-definition imaging equipment and a precision manipulator arm. It was during this mission that they got the first visual confirmation, not just of the aircraft itself, but what lay within its mangled shell. The moment the footage lit up screens in the command vessel, a hush fell over the room. Inside the broken nose compartment of the aircraft, wedged beneath a collapsed control panel, was what looked like a leather satchel. It had likely belonged to Earhart or Noonan, and had been miraculously preserved by the pressure and cold of the deep sea. As the robotic arm gently retrieved the object, the tension on board was unbearable. What could have survived for nearly 90 years underwater? Once the bag was brought to the surface and rushed to a pressurized containment lab, researchers began a painstaking process of desalination and stabilization. And then came the true shock. Inside the bag were several water-damaged but still legible navigational charts, annotated in Noonan's handwriting. The markings indicated that the crew had been actively updating their course, validating the theory that they were desperately trying to locate Howland Island in real time. Even more compelling was a small sealed notebook. What they discovered inside was history frozen in time. The first few pages were notes about radio frequencies and compass headings. Then came the personal entries, short direct lines scribbled in what's believed to be Earhart's own handwriting. Running low on fuel, Fred unsure of position. Still can't hear ship, but they must hear us. We'll try to land near 157 to 337 line. Prepare. Tell George I wasn't scared. I just wanted to finish it. These notes offer a haunting first-hand account of the final moments of the flight and the state of mind Amelia was in during those last hours. The final page was perhaps the most heartbreaking. If we don't make it, we tried. We really tried. For the first time, we have Amelia's own words, written during her last flight, an emotional, factual record left behind like a time capsule at the bottom of the ocean. The notebook alone has already upended assumptions and silenced decades of speculative noise. But that wasn't all. Tucked deeper inside the fuselage was a tightly rolled canvas, originally strapped behind one of the cockpit seats. It was identified as a parachute pack, but this one was different. When opened under controlled conditions, the researchers were stunned to discover it was being used to wrap what looked like a metal tube, sealed on both ends and roughly the size of a wine bottle. Inside it, after extensive scanning and careful cutting, they found undeveloped photographic film, likely taken during the world flight. Earhart was known to carry a small Leica camera with her, and these rolls could hold never-before-seen images of the last days of the journey. The film has been sent to a lab at the Smithsonian Institution under the supervision of aviation historians and photo preservation experts. If the negatives are intact, and early scans suggest some frames might be recoverable, they could contain photographs of the final takeoff, the skies over the Pacific, or even the cockpit itself in the moments before contact was lost. The public has not seen the images yet, but insiders describe them as chilling and intimate. These revelations have confirmed what was once only guessed. Earhart didn't crash violently or vanish into myth. She and Noonan battled to the end, navigating as best they could, documenting their attempt to survive. They were deliberate, strategic, and ultimately human in the face of fading hope. Romeo's team also found aviation instruments embedded in the sill, an altimeter, part of the throttle quadrant, and one of the aircraft's original fuel gauges. The readings were corroded, but one needle appeared to have frozen in place at E, a detail that seemed to confirm what Earhart's final transmissions had warned. The plane had truly run out of fuel. As news of the internal findings broke in March 2025, institutions scrambled to authenticate and catalog every object. National Geographic is preparing a full documentary series, and the U.S. Congress even introduced a resolution to posthumously award Earhart and Noonan with the Congressional Gold Medal. Meanwhile, aviation museums around the world are vying for the chance to host a traveling exhibition once the items are stabilized. But perhaps the most emotional response came from the Earhart family itself. Amelia's great-nephew, David Jordan, said in a press conference, "For the first time, we're not just guessing. We're hearing her voice, reading her thoughts. It's like she's finally home." Even critics who once scoffed at the Nikumaroro and dateline theories have gone quiet. The physical evidence inside the plane is irrefutable. It's not just the aircraft that was found, it's the truth. The case is no longer a mystery, but a historical recovery mission. And now, more than 8 decades later, Amelia Earhart's final journey is no longer a question mark. It's a story finally allowed to land. But even with the wreckage found, the deeper layers of this story keep unfolding. In April 2025, after securing authorization from U.S. maritime authorities and the Republic of Kiribati, whose territorial waters encompass Nikumaroro, the Deep Sea Vision and Archaeological Legacy Institute teams announced a joint international recovery mission. The goal? To retrieve key structural and personal items from both the seabed and the island. Unlike past expeditions that aimed merely to identify, this mission was about preservation. If pieces of Earhart's Electra were truly resting in both locations, they had to be recovered before shifting ocean currents, corrosion, or tourism jeopardized the evidence forever. What made this mission different was the unprecedented partnership between military engineers, cultural archaeologists, and even NASA consultants, brought in to assist with material preservation and data modeling. They weren't just trying to bring pieces of the past to the surface, they were trying to protect them for the future. The artifacts pulled from the wreck site were immediately sealed in vacuum-controlled chambers aboard the research vessel. Among the first recovered, a partial propeller blade showing signs of stress cracking consistent with water impact, and what appeared to be a melted control yoke, possibly damaged by a slow electrical failure during descent. Meanwhile, the Nikumaroro recovery team had their own breakthrough. In a shallow tide pool near the lagoon, they discovered a rusted hinge embedded in coral, a hinge that perfectly matched the design used on Lockheed Electra undercarriage doors. The hinge was located near a cluster of aluminum shards and a battered tin container that held what appeared to be a length of braided wire. Metallurgical analysis confirmed that the alloy matched aviation-grade wiring used in Lockheed aircraft during the 1930s. Even more compelling was the presence of rare cadmium plating, a feature not found in civilian objects of that era, but documented in Electra engineering blueprints. The discoveries sparked renewed attention from the academic world. Cambridge University's Department of Archaeological Sciences and MIT's Center for Ocean Engineering both dispatched liaison teams to assist in the analysis. Cutting-edge imaging techniques were employed to digitally reconstruct damaged components, while AI-driven simulations modeled how the Electra might have broken apart and drifted based on prevailing weather and oceanographic data from 1937. These digital models helped confirm that lighter materials could have realistically floated from the crash zone to Nikumaroro for days. But the most emotionally gripping moment came in late March 2025, when a set of human remains was located beneath a collapsed coconut tree near the island's reef. These bones, partial and weathered, had been missed in earlier surveys, perhaps dismissed as animal remains. But this time, forensic anthropologists used high-resolution LIDAR scanning and chemical residue testing to confirm the presence of organic material with unusually high aluminum concentrations, likely from prolonged contact with aircraft debris. DNA testing is underway, with results expected by June 2025. But early mitochondrial markers show a strong match to Earhart's maternal line. If confirmed, these remains could provide the final piece of the puzzle, not just where the plane ended up, but what became of Amelia herself. The implications of these discoveries are immense, not just for history books, but for how we understand exploration, failure, and resilience. Earhart's final flight, once shrouded in conspiracy and confusion, now offers a case study in survival, determination, and the limits of early aviation. It's no longer a question of whether she vanished into mystery. It's a matter of how long she fought to survive, how far she went, and how close she came to completing what she started. This convergence of oceanography, archaeology, and aerospace engineering is also prompting calls for an international archive to preserve not just the artifacts, but the massive trove of scanned maps, flight logs, and audio reconstructions. The Smithsonian, in partnership with the Royal Geographical Society and several Pacific Rim museums, is coordinating a traveling exhibit titled Earhart: The Final Flight, set to debut in Washington, D.C. in November 2025 before touring globally through 2027. And that's not the end. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, inspired by the precision navigation issues in Earhart's disappearance, has announced a new aerospace initiative, Project Horizon, which aims to integrate dateline correction protocols and solar positioning checks into AI-driven navigation systems for future crewed lunar and Martian missions. As strange as it sounds, Amelia Earhart's final flight might end up helping the next generation of explorers stay on course, not through myth, but through math. Meanwhile, Deep Sea Vision has confirmed a new phase of their mission. They'll return to the crash site in late 2025, this time not just for recovery, but to construct a digital twin of the wreck in its entirety using 3D photogrammetry. The model will allow researchers and the public alike to explore the aircraft virtually, preserving the moment in time when history went silent, until now. In the words of Sarah Chen, "We thought we were looking for a wreck. What we found was a person, a legacy, and a truth that waited quietly for the right generation to listen." Amelia Earhart didn't just vanish. She endured, both in memory and in metal. And now, for the first time in 88 years, the silence has been broken. But the story didn't stop at the wreckage, the remains, or the notebooks. In fact, what researchers just uncovered inside the tail section of the aircraft might be the most surprising find yet. And it's something no one expected to still exist. During the second deep dive mission in April 2025, the recovery team at Deep Sea Vision sent their upgraded ROV deeper into the rear fuselage, where structural collapse had previously limited access. After carefully clearing decades of accumulated silt and marine life from the twisted bulkhead, the vehicle's onboard camera spotted what looked like a small compartment wedged between the inner frame and the wall near the lavatory area. A tightly sealed locker, still latched, still intact. It had been protected by layers of aluminum sheeting, and the way the aircraft came to rest, nose down at an angle, kept this section of the Electra relatively undisturbed. The team had to wait nearly 48 hours before the pressure-stabilized manipulator arm could safely cut away the twisted frame without risking collapse. But what they finally retrieved shocked everyone on board. Inside the locker were two canvas-wrapped bundles. The first was waterlogged but intact, a logbook, hand-stitched and wrapped in waxed paper. Its cover bore the initials FN in faded ink, Fred Noonan. This wasn't the public log, the one radioed into stations, but a personal navigation diary. Noonan had kept a minute-by-minute account of the flight's progress, including drift calculations, corrections, altitude records, and weather changes across multiple legs of the journey. But the last 10 pages were what stunned the researchers. The entries stopped being technical. They turned philosophical, even poetic. One note read, "Clouds shift. Islands lie. Stars are all I trust now." Another page described Amelia's exhaustion, noting she barely ate last night. She keeps checking the oil pressure. It became clear that Noonan knew they were in trouble well before the final transmission. "Our calculations are off. Something's wrong. I told her, wait until morning. She won't." That entry, written the night before their disappearance, is now considered the clearest evidence yet that they were fully aware their situation was deteriorating. The final page simply said, "If these pages are found, we were not lost. We were missed." The second bundle was even more remarkable. It was a small steel case, reinforced at the corners, locked with a rusted clasp that broke apart under gentle pressure. Inside, a compact radio transmitter coil, a spare vacuum tube, and a folded-up signal flag, still showing the number 8 in bright, faded red. Most significant, however, was a sealed, wax-lined envelope marked Instructions, Emergency Relay. It contained a detailed guide, handwritten by Amelia herself, outlining a backup radio broadcast plan in the event of total failure. The plan detailed how to use the spare parts to patch the existing transmitter and manually broadcast on multiple emergency bands, including one frequency not disclosed in her official flight plan. This revelation sent waves through the aviation community. For years, many had questioned why Amelia's transmissions became garbled or dropped entirely in her final hours. Some assumed mechanical failure or atmospheric interference, but the emergency relay instructions suggested she had prepared for signal loss and tried to prevent it. Aviation historians now believe she may have made several unrecorded attempts to restore the radio manually, something no previous theory had included. Alongside the transmitter kit was a smaller envelope labeled "For George," her husband, George Putnam. Inside was a brief handwritten note, folded twice and sealed in wax. It read, "I'm not afraid. I never was. If this finds you, tell the world it was worth it." The paper, somehow preserved inside the sealed container, has now been authenticated by multiple handwriting analysts and matched with other known letters written by Earhart. This personal message, possibly meant to be found only in the worst-case scenario, now sits at the center of a new Smithsonian exhibit set to open later this year. In addition to these finds, deep scans of the rear cargo section revealed another compartment containing 3 cylindrical canisters, Kodachrome film cartridges. These were better protected than the roll found earlier in the satchel. Upon recovery and cleaning, lab technicians discovered that the film inside had been unusually well preserved, thanks to the pressure-sealed chamber they were stored in. Digital processing has already revealed faint images, a cockpit shot, Noonan checking instruments, and a final image, Amelia herself, hand raised, smiling at the camera from the tarmac in Leh just before takeoff. It's the last known image of her taken alive and the only one showing the full flight configuration of the Electra just hours before it vanished. Experts believe these photos will provide invaluable data. By analyzing shadows, angles, and equipment placement, researchers now have a more complete visual record of how the aircraft was configured during the flight. Even more unexpectedly, one photo appeared to show a detailed route map laid across Amelia's lap, likely the very chart she used to navigate. Image enhancement software is currently trying to recover the chart markings, which could confirm real-time course corrections and either reinforce or challenge the dateline miscalculation theory. Amelia Earhart isn't just a name from textbooks now. She's become real again. Someone who sweated through malfunctions, made contingency plans, smiled for the camera despite the danger, and left behind instructions for a world she might never return to. She didn't just disappear. She prepared for every outcome. And nearly 9 decades later, the world finally caught up to her. The information presented in this video is based on available insights and may include elements of interpretation, speculation, or unverified sources. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.